Coach and Bradley here, rookie sleepers and breakouts. We're getting ever so close to the NFL draft. Bradley, Pete Schrager, very reputable out there in the NFL draft streets, has a great mock, very in tune to what's going on. We'll see some overlap probably with what Daniel Jeremiah and other sharp minds have. But let's just break it down. Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders. Nothing new here at 1 overall, but Kirk Cousins signing, does that throw any wrench in the timeline? Do you think that Mendoza becomes on that bridge path where Kirk Cousins starts the season and then it becomes Mendoza? So any wrench there for week 1 status?
I think this absolutely impacts Mendoza week 1 status. The concerns are from the coach speak. They wanted a veteran quarterback to push. And I don't think that Kirk Cousins is washed. Like that's the thing is you look at a player like Joe Flacco, who for years and years and years was not necessarily starting caliber in the NFL, but was able to patch and bridge and provide quality NFL quarterback play, even if he's not, let's say, starter material. And I think the Raiders don't want to rush Mendoza along. I do think that this is a situation where the NFL, they look at how quarterbacks have been successful in the NFL, whether it is a Jordyn Love or whether it was an Aaron Rodgers, or you think about a Patrick Mahomes sitting for a full year. Like that's got to be sitting with Tom Brady in all of his meetings. And how can you have Mendoza set up for success? Because the Raiders have just rotated through coaches and GMs and quarterbacks and pretty much all of their players and administrative staff for nearly a decade. So you bring in a new administration of minority ownership of Tom Brady, and I think things are going to run a little differently now that Kubiak is there.
Hey, and then you have with Kirk Cousins, the further removed from his injury, the healthier long-term path that he has, 37 years old. Last year, I was in a startup for Dynasty, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, and my mental exercise was they had dead value, both of them. And the thought was, hey, 1 year rental in Rodgers, and he's kind of wishy-washy on the year-to-year commitment. So in my head, I thought, hey, long-term, and this is deep in the draft, I'm going to go Kirk Cousins because there could be some long-term viability. And the further he gets from that injury, maybe he can support throwing off of that back foot. He didn't seem to have leverage in Atlanta, and he couldn't throw near the same as he used to, but hopefully that keeps getting better for him. Recall from 2020 to 2023, he averaged anywhere between 18 and 20 fantasy points per game, which put him at QB 11, QB 12 for 4 straight seasons on a fantasy points per game basis. So not all for naught here. And in 6-point passing touchdown, I think he could be viable streamer for you and somebody who, for a patch of games, ends up doing the job for you, where it's kind of like found money. So with Mendoza, it just throws off the path a little bit. But I still think he's a proper 102 in the rookie drafts. Going down to Jeremiyah Love, Tennessee Titans, it seems like a foregone conclusion. We're hearing a lot of worship and praise for somebody like Tony Pollard. Of course, NFL coaches may love Tony Pollard, loves what he does, has that veteran presence. But then again, this is gift horse in the mouth. You're not going to look at it. It's Jeremiyah Love. So does this throw anything off, or do you think the Titans are trying to draw any trade interest up?
This makes a lot of sense for a team that is in 2027. Like if the Titans were drafting in 27 and they had their quarterback in Cam Ward and they had a good wide receiver, like this would be the missing piece. Unfortunately, like Schrager is probably hearing that the Titans want a playmaker, and maybe that's why they're going to target Love, because he can catch passes out of the backfield too. But the Titans, you think about who they have catching passes for them. It's Wan'Dale Robinson and Calvin Ridley, a Xavier Restrepo, Eric Eomaner, right? Like you have guys, major questions at the wide receiver position, and you have some very solid wide receivers. So it may be a situation where the Tennessee Titans look at themselves and say, we need to trade down. We still need more to be able to be competitive in the NFL. And there are plenty of teams who have Jeremiyah Love as the most talented player on their board. So there may be some interest in this number 4 spot. I think straight up drafting Love by the Tennessee Titans here would be a mistake.
Yeah, but that doesn't stop people, right? That doesn't stop NFL teams from making that mistake. Tony Pollard, 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons. When you have the opportunity to take some pressure off of Cam Ward, I think you do it. And I think it's just going to be the easy button for the Titans. And it's crazy. When we would hear early in the draft cycle Cardinals in 3 and Jeremiyah Love, I thought it was bogus. But then for some reason, the Tennessee Titans, it kind of makes sense because they've had such a run of excellent running backs that keep coming through. So sometimes there's like that identity where the Steelers have always had wide receivers. The Giants have always had great defensive linemen and linebackers. So it's just kind of funny how fits, pairings, and positions and players kind of align with what you got going on in your forefront of your memory. Scrolling down, we don't get another position player until Jordyn Tyson to the Kansas City Chiefs. This would put, I would say, Tate, Lemon, Tyson at the front of Lemon and Carnell Tate. What say you, Bradley? Jordyn Tyson, would he then be the 102 behind Jeremiyah Love?
The 102, I don't know if I get that far. I still do trust the talent of Lemon and Tate, but this would at least raise my eyebrow. This would put him in that conversation of in the rotation of Tate, Lemon, Tyson. The landing spot also, if it's the Kansas City Chiefs, would be, and this is not the only mock where we've seen the Kansas City Chiefs take a wide receiver. Some have seen like Makai Lemon mocked here. Regardless, if the Kansas City Chiefs select a wide receiver at this number 9 spot, whether it's Tyson or someone else, I think this is an indictment of Xavier Worthy. That's the player that it most impacts. Rashee Rice is a top 5 player in terms of first read target share. Like, that's not going to go away. But you're going to see all of those other targets by Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster and Xavier Worthy get consolidated to a more talented wide receiver that's going to come in. And if it's Tyson, I think that's actually good for Rashee Rice because Rice plays 45% of the time in the slot. Now you can move him more in the slot, take some pressure off Travis Kelce. Kelce on a down year, probably on his last season. I think this sets up the Chiefs for the future in their receiving game, given some of those veterans who've moved off, and also some questions about the development of Worthy and what's going on in the offseason with Rashee Rice.
I think you hit the nail on the head with Xavier Worthy. I also think it's a further reckoning for the collective of Travis Kelce, wear and tear, and then, of course, Rashee Rice, availability, be it suspension, getting hurt. 4 games played in 2024, 8 games played in 2025, not on the field. You need to be available in the NFL. And if you can start a rookie clock for a guy like Jordyn Tyson, the pressure can ratchet up on somebody like Rashee Rice and de-escalate a little bit on the Kansas City Chiefs because they have that viability and they don't have to suffer from one-itis with Rashee Rice. Oh my God, we can't lose Rashee Rice. And then you're up a creek with Patrick Mahomes not having weapons. So I think it's due time. It's a reckoning for the Chiefs to go and reload. Speaking of reloading, Bradley, the Miami Dolphins shipped Jalen Waddle out. We got Devon Achane and contract negotiations at a stalling point. So Waddle to Denver, Tyreek Hill is out of town. You got nobody. You got insurance salesman at the receiver position. Carnell Tate, Blake Slate gets his own sandbox with the Miami Dolphins. I think this is a very underrated spot, Bradley. How do you like Carnell Tate? Have you seen Carnell Tate to the Dolphins?
This is the first mock that I've seen where Tate goes to the Dolphins, and I love it. Previously, we've seen so many mocks where Carnell Tate lands on the Cleveland Browns. And Tate is a very good wide receiver. But for him to go 6 overall, that felt a little rich to me throughout this process. Tate landing at 11 is, I think, the sweet spot for where he should have been going in the ether. And then specifically this landing spot he could get a 30% target share right off the bat. Like 32%. Like this could be one of those Drake London scenarios, Drake London rookie year, where he's getting 30%+ target share. And yes, it may be disappointing for fantasy in year one, but he's going to put up metrics that are just going to be so tantalizing moving forward. And top 11 draft capital is also pretty insulated. Like it's a real endorsement of Tate's metrics and background and being able to catch passes down the field. Look, I love this landing spot. I love the spot overall at 11. And yeah, this could be this is it. This is because we were looking at other mocks where Miami was taking a wide receiver at 30. They were taking it with a Denver pick, and I was actually pretty upset about the Jalen Waddle trade. This makes me feel a little better about the Waddle trade if you take Tate at 11.
Yeah, it'd be a great reset for the Miami Dolphins, and they're just an underrated 11 because we have all these landmines where we're talking about Browns and Jets. And then you talk about bullish spots, as we mentioned, with the Chiefs. But somewhere sneaky, the Dolphins have just kind of been erased from people's memories. And when you see a receiver paired with the Dolphins, it really looks bullish. As much as it is a bearish, non-linear path for the team and the build that they're on, they're deconstructing everything. But part of that is that you got to fill somebody in there. And getting Carnell Tate would be phenomenal. So I think that applies too for just about any wide receiver. But then again, a top tier guy like Tate, this is even better because it's going to be like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Now, we're talking rookies. Let's hear about the rookie guide.
In Dynasty Leagues, you must get your rookie draft right. You cannot get it wrong. That's why we have the Player Profiler Rookie Guide in partnership with Campus to Canton. They follow these guys from their freshman year through to the NFL. We're breaking these players down, everything you need to know about them and everything you need to know about the picks in your rookie draft. Oh, I have the 102. What do I do? I have the 108. What do I do? It's a complete player and strategy guide. It's just $25 on playerprofiler.com. You get it. You have the peace of mind that I'm going to make the right decisions to build a super team.
Go out and get that rookie guide. Bradley did some great work on that and the Player Profiler team. So hat tip to all of them. And also like, subscribe, share, give us 5 stars on the audio podcast. It goes a long way. We want to keep providing content for you. So please help us with doing those things. And let's take a look. The Rams, Makai Lemon, Bradley. I said 102 on Jordyn Tyson. Well, my God, this might be a bottleneck. Makai Lemon to the Rams. What do you make of it?
Coach, in the pre-show meeting, I was talking to you about how this mock just was, it felt perfect. It felt wonderful. It felt like the stars were aligning. In previous mocks, I was feeling upset or angry because certain teams were not doing things that didn't make sense. This totally makes sense. Davante Adams is entering the last year of his contract. There's already been conversations about Adams getting traded. A.J. Brown may or may not be available. Makai Lemon is a future pick and a legacy pick. This is an opportunity where, wow, you think about last year when the Rams acquired this pick from Atlanta for Pierce, right? And Pierce isn't even going to come to the training camp this year. Like what a loss by Atlanta to not be able to get a Makai Lemon type of player. Yes. And it just also fits in so well with what the Rams need. You think about where Puka Nacua wins. He wins down the field. Makai Lemon, mostly a slot guy. Who's the slot receiver on the Rams? The Crickets are telling you everything you need to know. This is a slam dunk play. And you think about a couple years ago when the Rams were trying to aggressively move up to trade for Brock Bowers. They've wanted a guy who can win in the middle of the field. It isn't any of their tight ends anymore. Sorry, Tyler Higbee. Sorry, every other tight end on the Rams. Makai Lemon, this would be a smash pick, a great pick for the Rams.
And talk about in Dynasty how you get leverage on your league where you're the benefactor against your trade partner, but then you get one up on the league. And then here in the actual NFL, the Rams are getting that leverage by the Falcons would be perfect. They are desperate for a second receiver across from somebody like Drake London, especially the archetype of Makai Lemon. So it's like your opponent gets weaker, you get stronger, and your collective field that you're competing against are feeling like, hey, this is somewhat unfair. Now, the Ravens, right before the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a tight end needy team, they go out and get Kenyon Sadiq from Oregon. People have Stowers and Sadiq neck and neck. They're getting closer. How do you like this pairing with Isaiah Likely gone to the Giants and Mark Andrews? People are leaving him for dead. How do you think the personnel would go with Sadiq and Mark Andrews to the Ravens? Ravens at 14.
The Ravens have wanted a second tight end for a while. Isaiah Likely priced himself out. They just couldn't bring him back. Mark Andrews is still a force. I think this would be extremely detrimental to Kenyon Sadiq's year one and even year two value. You think about Sadiq like sitting, and he could follow the Trey McBride pathway where you need a couple years for him to break out. And I think that's what would happen if it happens in this landing spot. But Sadiq, you could not view Sadiq as he would be at best the third receiving option on this team behind Zay Flowers and then Mark Andrews. And then Lord knows if they take a wide receiver in round 2 or round 3, because you have some round 2, round 3 wide receivers that could probably command a higher target share than Kenyon Sadiq would, even as a round 1 tight end. So, and I don't think the Ravens are done addressing the wide receiver position either. You think about all of those free agent wide receivers, the Stephon Diggs, the Deebo Samuels, who are still out there, who I think if they join the Ravens today would be ahead of Sadiq there. So there's a lot of pathways of failure for immediate fantasy impact for Sadiq. And there's only really one pathway for him to be fantasy viable, and that is for Mark Andrews to not play for the Ravens.
Well, I think it would really help. Funny, all that you're mentioning too, it points to Zay Flowers' season. And a lot of people, sharps in the industry, have been sharp on somebody like Zay Flowers. So a move like this actually tells you, okay, well, I'm exhausted. We've been exhausted of Rashad Bateman and the Devin Duvernays of the world. There does need to be, as you said, Bradley, there needs to be another influx of receiver help, be it free agency. And this is a deeper wide receiver class, so maybe it wouldn't be the death knell to the receiver position. But this signals to me bullish for somebody like Zay Flowers. Sometimes you have to look at where the board is and where elsewhere on the board it could be affecting. Now, 16 to the Jets. This is the Colts pick that was traded away. Omar Cooper goes to the Jets. You figure if it's Geno Smith to start the season, it would be good across from Garrett Wilson, and there could be some throw mode opportunity there. I'm very high on Omar Cooper. The Jets are a bearish spot in general just because they've been a dysfunctional organization. But Bradley, do you like the idea of Omar Cooper going to the Jets?
I think this is a good fit. Cooper has a lot of experience playing out of the slot. The Jets have, of course, mentioned that Garrett Wilson is clearly the number one by far. But then they've also mentioned that Adonai Mitchell, they want to get him playing on the outside. So Cooper would play the slot. AD Mitchell would be outside alongside Garrett Wilson. And then you have Mason Taylor, who the Jets are also very high on. And I think that this would be a good fit for what they want to do on offense. You think about how Cooper has continued to rise throughout this process. Remember when we were doing these maybe 2 months ago and Cooper was a top 30 pick and then he became a top 20 pick and now he's into the teens. So I think this is a real testament to how the NFL is viewing Omar Cooper. And I think this is a good fit for what the Jets need in addressing what is a pretty bare offensive and skill position player unit. Mason Taylor does not instill a ton of confidence. AJ Mitchell does not instill a ton of confidence, but Omar Cooper would move the needle, I think, in the positive direction.
And the cool thing is we've seen some overlap. I believe Daniel Jeremiah and some other sharp drafters out there have had Omar Cooper linked to the New York Jets. So it's kind of neat to see Pete Schrager here in this mock, this much closer to the NFL draft, putting Omar Cooper there to the Jets. As we scroll along down, we get down to pick 23, Denzel Boston, Philadelphia Eagles. On the surface, I think this looks bad, but I think this just necessitates the idea of an A.J. Brown trade. And if it's A.J. Brown out across from Devonta Smith, Denzel Boston, I got to say, Bradley, I'd be bearish in year one for Denzel Boston. Some raw traits. It's this Drake London, Tedero McMillan archetype, which we love, Roma Dunze, which we love, but not necessarily the most clean linear path in year one. I don't love the way things have gone with Jalen Hurts in, let's just say, year one of A.J. Brown. There was a certain type of throw mode that Jalen Hurts had, a certain aggression in the RPO to keep defenses off balance that I have not seen in Jalen Hurts in the last couple of years. Maybe a little bit resting on his laurels. I'm not sure. Just different stylistically plays that Jalen Hurts does. So I'm bearish on Boston. Are you bullish or bearish here? 23 to the Eagles in round one.
Want to offer some context as well. This mock came out before the Dontavion Wicks trade from the Green Bay Packers to the Philadelphia Eagles. And that may or may not move the needle in terms of the Philadelphia Eagles selecting a wide receiver in the first round. But I think the Dontavion Wicks trade absolutely indicates that A.J. Brown is gone. My projections have the Philadelphia Eagles at 138 receptions over expectation, which means that there's more than 130 catches for players that are being projected on this team. Someone and probably some two players have got to go. So A.J. Brown, obviously a very clear move here. Denzel Boston, even if he lands in Philadelphia, you think about him having to play behind Devonta Smith, him having to play probably behind a Dallas Goedert in terms of just straight target share. He rivals a Saquon Barkley. But then you have a veteran. The Eagles brought in a Hollywood Brown who gets a 12% target share. You have an Elijah Moore who gets a 5-6% target share. Maybe those guys end up going away. They don't make the team, but there's at least strong competition with veteran, former first and second round pedigree wide receivers on this squad who you're going to have to push out. So yeah, Boston year one, this would be pretty detrimental for him to have an opportunity right off the bat. And then if Dontavion Wicks, who's a 12 to 13% target share guy. So yeah, this is a very tight landing spot. And I think this is maybe, I'm just reading between the tea leaves, less about Boston actually landing in Philadelphia and more so finding the A.J. Brown replacement.
Well, every year, Bradley, 101 to the 112 in our rookie drafts, they all look great. And there's got to be some bullish, nonlinear or bearish, nonlinear outcome out there. And I think you call them when you see them. And I think that may be the case for somebody like Denzel Boston. And you make a salient point where gamers aren't necessarily thinking of Elijah Moore or Hollywood Brown, where if it's 12 and it's 5%, all of a sudden that's 18%. That's almost 20% of share that gets gobbled up. So you think it's a skinnier path than you think, but you don't realize how you can get accordion out. That 100% target share can get gobbled up quickly, and it may not be as much left of the pie for somebody like a Denzel Boston.
And then Philadelphia's pie is even smaller.
Yes, and that's it. That's an even better point too, because that plays into you want good players on good offenses because, hey, 18% in one spot is better than 25% in another spot where it's a smaller pie. Great point on that, Bradley. And speaking of bearish, and we're not talking about the Chicago Bears, we're talking about the Cleveland Browns, Casey Concepcion.
Ooh.
I don't love this. I love Concepcion, but I would have to at least say, look, let's cool the Jets a little bit. I hate the weather in Cleveland, especially in December. It's not fantasy friendly for throwing. And then you have what could happen with Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders. Is this a tank for Arch Manning? Bradley, talk me off the ledge on Concepcion to the Browns.
I mean, the Browns selection here of Concepcion would give him a very solid landing spot. There would be a lot of opportunity there. So those are the pluses. We like his play style. I'm trying to build this up here, Coach. I'm trying to be positive Bradley. The comps are like Stephon Diggs, Antonio Brown, Zay Flowers, like that type of shiftiness. And the reality is that you look at the Cleveland Browns, who have Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and Harold Fannin. Like, do they need a shifty guy, or do they need a big dude to win down the field? And maybe a Denzel Boston's actually a better fit for the Cleveland Browns and what they actually need in terms of winning near the goal line. But the negative is the most obvious, and that's having major questions of the quarterback position and whether Concepcion would be able to continue his growth as a prospect in Cleveland. It's highly questionable about wide receivers and their growth. You think you can date back even to like the Braylon Edwards years for Cleveland. Like, yeah, Josh Gordon did well and then flamed out. Like, real quick, the wide receivers who have actually done well in Cleveland over the last 5 years have been veterans who have been traded there. Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, like they had career years in Cleveland, but they were veterans. So it's still left, is major questions of whether a wide receiver can come in and develop well. Harold Fannin, he's a tight end. He's a tight end. So yeah, I've got questions about whether Concepcion would be able to develop appropriately in Cleveland.
And I think what really, as we're talking about it, what dawns on me, the hesitancy is the quarterback play. Deshaun Watson is not a structure type of player. And when he went over to Cleveland, he was forced more into structure, and it really kind of fell apart. Then the cadence of the maturation for somebody like Shedeur Sanders, we've seen it on display, the fantasy goodness that he can provide. And I remember streaming him. I think it was the game against the Titans where he got me about 40 points one week. I was thrilled and ecstatic, but week over week, playing in that structure and building, we want to see the next step. That's all I'll say. That's as bullish as I can get right now on the Browns. Scrolling on down through on to the last
Number
pick,
32.
ends up being 32. This is another overlap pick, which we're excited about, Bradley. Another bell rung for Jadarian Price in round 1, but also doubly to the Seahawks. So be it 64 to the Seahawks, 32 to the Seahawks. Latching on for a running back in one of the most bullish spots is your Notre Dame Jadarian Price.
Go Irish. Jadarian Price, we've seen him mocked here before at 32, at 64, and now again at 32 from different places. Now, here's the interesting thing. To my knowledge, and based on the records that I've reviewed so far, Jadarian Price has not gotten the top 30 visit to Seattle. Is that correct?
I was looking at Walter Football today, and I couldn't find – they had a landing spot page. They didn't have anything for Jadarian Price when I went to enter, but doesn't mean he hasn't had visits, but not that I can recall. But then again, Bradley, teams want to hold things close to the vest. Sure. You get your information.
But the Seattle Seahawks have brought in a few other running backs, including Mike Washington. The Seahawks are definitely trying to do their homework on the running back position. And you think about Jadarian Price landing here. This would be obviously like I've comped Jadarian Price to Kenneth Walker Light. Certainly an interesting comp, but the Seahawks have also brought in Coleman Bennett, who has nearly 700 college rushes in his time in college, an 82.6 PFF rush grade during his final season in college. They brought in Jonah Coleman, 633 career carries and an 83.8 PFF rush grade during his final season. And Chip Trayanum, 566 career rushes and an 80.4 PFF rush grade during his final year, along with Mike Washington. And now it's Jadarian Price. There is a lot of noise for Seattle to take a running back either in round 1 or round 2. And given the amount of times that Jadarian Price has been mocked here, both at 32 and 64, it's hard to not get excited about a Jadarian Price first, second down role where he's got amazing vision. He will also get some opportunities on special teams, and Emmanuel Wilson will just spell him here and there. I'm here for Jadarian Price. Go Irish.
And something you need to watch for on the entire NFL draft weekend is the idea planted out there that it's going to be Jeremiyah Love in round 1, and we're going to get a gap until round 3 before the next rookie running back is selected.
It's possible.
And then there's that. So there's a school of thought out there where we're just going to get a whole sawed off where it's like, oh man, Mike Washington, Jadarian Price, Emmett Johnson, Katron Allen, Jonah Coleman. You want to throw Nick Singleton in there. It's just going to be a huge gap. And we're going to be like, oh, crap. Like,
I think Coach got muted for a second here.
sorry, my screen went crazy. What you're going to have is either this gap, round 1 to round 3, or you're going to have to what all these mock drafters are savvy on is the fact that it's going to be Jadarian Price, pick 32 overall. So we shall see. Bradley, this has been fun. We're getting sharper and sharper, and we're getting more overlap. So maybe that can inform some of the bets that we make and the alacrity we have in our decision making. So I've been Coach. This has been Bradley. We will see you next.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.